going to do a meditation on attachment. This actually comes from Venerable Thupten Chodron, her series of meditations. It's called Taking the Ache Out of Attachment. So we begin to look at that. What I'm thinking is next week, next Tuesday, I'll work a little more with the antidotes to attachment, since it's such a prevalent delusion that we have. Let's go ahead and start today, as we usually do, with a few minutes of silent meditation, working with the breath. So again, there are many ways to work with the breath. Just choose one that suits you and try to keep the mind with the breath as much as possible. Whenever you see that the mind wanders away, gently guide the mind back to the breath. So again, we'll do this in silence for a few minutes, and then I will lead you in setting motivation and doing this meditation. So now let's set our motivation for doing meditation this morning. As I said, we're going to work with this affliction we call attachment or desire, craving. And we can see that this mind is the source of so many problems and difficulties in the world. In fact, when the Buddha taught his first sutra, he pinpointed this as the most direct cause of our suffering. So before we engage in this meditation on attachment, set the motivation that you want to clearly examine the way that attachment works in your own life. Begin to see it for what it is, and to do this so that you can then help others to be free from their attachment. We always want to do this work with the intention of developing ourselves so we become more capable in being able to help others. So motivated by compassion for them, by a sincere love for them, we generate that mind that aspires to help them in the best way possible. And we do this by being able to address our own minds, subdue our own afflictions. And it's for that reason that we're here today. So again, this mind of attachment, as I said, plays a key role in most of our lives. The very first question that I'd like you to examine for a while is to think about what are the things, objects, maybe people, places, even ideas that you're attached to. And make specific examples as much as possible. Just looking at your life and thinking about all the things for which you have some sense of attachment. Recall that attachment isn't a healthy mind, where we have kind of a loving connection to these things. Rather, this is a mind that is working with those as true sources of our happiness, seeing those objects in ways that are really not in line with reality. So here, just take a few minutes to examine all the various things that you have as objects of attachment, just to be very clear about how it is playing a role in your own life. So now that you've begun this exploration of the things that are objects of attachment for you, again, whether they be people, places, ideas, sense objects, what the Buddha says is with the mind of attachment, one of the main features is that we are exaggerating, we are superimposing qualities on that object. That there is some basis for it. These do produce some pleasurable sensation for us, but nonetheless, we are heightening that, we are elevating that, going far beyond what is actually there. So, with regard to those objects that you've identified, how do they appear to you? Do they appear with that exaggerated sense of pleasantness? And then do the investigation as to whether or not it really has those qualities that you perceive and that you attribute to it. And spend a bit of time with each of the objects that you've identified, examining them in the same way. How do they appear to you? Do they have that exaggerated sense? And then, do they really possess that then? What is their real nature? So hopefully you've begun to see the way that attachment works in exaggerating the pleasant qualities of the object, the person, whatever it is that we're attached to. Let's examine what that leads us to do in terms of, first of all, having very unrealistic expectations about that object or person. And to what extent do you develop these expectations of that person or thing, thinking that they will always be there, thinking that they will continuously make you happy, that they will satisfy you? To what degree is this leading to these unhealthy expectations? And are those expectations, again, realistic or unrealistic? Do some examination so you can begin to see whether those expectations of those objects of attachment are really valid or not. So again, spend a few minutes, again, with as many of the objects of attachment that you thought of first to see if those unrealistic expectations are present. And then secondly, besides those unrealistic expectations we have of those objects of attachment, we also engage in a lot of actions that are motivated by that attachment. For example, with regard to people we're attached to, we might become very manipulative, doing things that try to get them to do what we want them to do, to please us. With regard to various objects of the senses, we might engage in things that go against our ethical standards to procure those things, to hold on to those things. With regard to our views, we might end up arguing with others, being very disregarding of their feelings when we are attached to the views that we have. So spend a little bit of time examining to what degree do you get into any of these sort of dysfunctional modes of action on the basis of your attachment, on the basis of clinging to what it is that you find desirable and pleasant, that you've exaggerated the qualities of, and therefore you need to do whatever is you can to procure those things, to hold on to those things. So again, spend some time investigating as many of the objects of attachment that you identified earlier in terms of what actions that attachment leads you to do. So then in the final part of this meditation, we can ask ourselves through this investigation, through seeing how attachment exaggerates, superimposes all these qualities that the objects really don't possess, that then creates these unrealistic expectations in regard to those objects. And furthermore, we engage in oftentimes unwholesome actions on the basis of this attachment. Is attachment really your friend? It seems to be getting you the objects of pleasure to fulfill that fundamental desire that we all possess for happiness. But does it really do the trick? Is it a friend, or is it actually a thief that destroys your peace of mind? And to this, I'll read one verse from Arya Deva. He says, "Attachment is no friend, but seems like one, which is why you do not fear it. But shouldn't people especially rid themselves of a harmful friend?" So spend this last part kind of coming to some conclusion. Is attachment a friend, or is it an enemy? Okay. So again, keep in mind next Tuesday, I'll work more with the more specific antidotes to attachment. But at least hopefully today, we've come to the conclusion that this is a mind that we want to begin to work with. Very difficult one, but nonetheless one that we can begin to reduce. So let's go ahead and dedicate all the positive energy that we've created through this meditation to achieving enlightenment, so we can then help all sentient beings to do the same. And moreover, we also dedicate to the good health and long lives of all of our precious teachers upon whom we depend so greatly. May they continue to be in this world and guide each and every one of us until we achieve enlightenment. And then also send this positive energy out to those beings who are in your life right now, in your heart, who are experiencing difficulty, who have illness, who are dying, who have died. I think that they benefit from what we've done here today as well. And they find all the causes that will lead them to true peace. And may all beings find perfect happiness through what we've done here today. Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Have a good day. Stay safe, and I will see you all again soon.